Hi and welcome back to Roottreemania. We'll be following the thread of Guy Hudson's affairs. If you're not yet caught up, hop onto the playlist on my channel to see the previous episodes and get all the details. But if you're here for the new content, we've locked down 2 of his affairs, but we have plenty notes about other potential things, so I already organized it in separate tabs for our future research to distinguish between affairs with secretaries or with his international business partners and associated family members. So yeah, in secretaries we have this mention of Sam working with someone called Elizabeth, who then has a daughter who's a secretary to Guy, and she meets some guy at Antonelli's through one of the guy's parties. Yes, and then this daughter elopes with this person she met through such party. So we can start with this and see if we can find anything about them through the restaurant. Okay, so this is a popular name for Italian restaurant. More local resource if you're looking for a specific. Okay, so they're like, hey, local things, look them up in the local periodicals. It's an Italian restaurant that was mentioned by the county times twice. It closed in 1992. The owner, Rochelle Zimmer, sold the land the building was on. At the time of the article, she was unsure the restaurant would move to a new location or she would retire. Many years before that, there's a puff piece from Valentine's Day in 1978, so that's within our time frame, that asked recently married residents of Butler County how they met. Christine Garland responded. She and her husband Steve, who was a chef at Antonelli's, met years ago when she delivered produce from her mother's farm. Now that all sounds good for the story so far. Steve used to work extra hours just to be there during her deliveries. They grew apart when the restaurant switched suppliers. They reconnected by chance and eloped at the end of the last year. Now she has abandoned the oven and they're both working as much as they can. She's a secretary but went back to delivering produce on the weekends. I wonder how that's gonna work in terms of a job. Although that was 1978, so since then she may have changed her job again if she's like doing lots of things. Trying to save up money to move to Boston and open their own restaurant, yeah, so that might be something she ended up doing. Okay, so let's go in the company files and see if we have... Yes, there we go. Christine Garland is no longer working at Rootree. Let's see... So we have Christine Pharoah is no longer listed, but Christine Garland has been hired, and we have Christine Pharoah was hired. Okay, so that would appear to be what her name was changed to. Now this, we're saying this is 76 to 77, so that puts her as one of the earlier ones, because she has 75. And again, we know that she got married and had kid or kids, so again, not this one, and this one is later. This is after 79, so this is her likely. So we have Christine Pharoah, yeah. Yeah, it was unclear what her occupation may have been, because yeah, secretary, produce, and then opening her own restaurant, and yeah, in terms of picture, don't know. So this is Stephen Garland then. Okay, well, let's see if we can research them some more and get anything. Okay, nothing about him here. Okay, he's mentioned a couple articles. The first was an article about how he met his wife Christine when he worked at Antonelli's, so yeah, that we know about. Second is from months later, in September 1978, a listing for his weekend cooking classes, gourmet for the groovy. The blurb mentions that he's been giving lessons from his home kitchen for the last month so that he can keep an eye on his son. The third was from 1991 and is titled Local Author Sued by Former Butler County Resident. It seems that a local author by the name of Mark Zimmer was sued by Garland after Garland saw Zimmer's promoting his book Kitchen Tales. And that's Zimmer is also Rochelle Zimmer, so they were definitely connected in some way. His recipe book was partially plagiarized from the recipes that Steve Garland would give his students during his cooking lessons before he moved. The article mentions that although recipes are hard to copyright, Garland accompanied each recipe with a short fiction about how he learned it. Those usually doubled as a way to remember certain ingredients. Garland's bean salad, for example, involved making a trade with a gnome for some magic beans. Apparently the stories were found word for word in Zimmer's cookbook, in addition to additional stories that follow the same format. Yes, this is supposedly, I've heard that this is the reason, like, why if you look up recipes on Google, they always come with, like, the massive story about, you know, I went with my grandma to the market and that reminded me of soup, and here's 20-page essay about soup, which is supposedly, like, how people, you know, put something that's copyrightable onto their website and not just recipe. Mark here. Yeah, he has a few mentions. Yeah, Rochelle and him were local business owners, owned Antonelli's, and he owned a local bookstore called Bookmarks, but it closed in 1992. Okay, so they both closed their businesses and possibly moved out of the area. And he was sued by Steve Garland. Okay, we've got some printing. Story-based recipe book credited to Mark Zimmer that had some success after it featured on a morning talk show. The book was released before the internet was widespread, so mentions are rare. One book collector states that the publishers were unprepared for the demand and there was no second printing, so it's unusual to find a copy in the wild. You find an alternative medicine website which focuses on cooking with natural ingredients. It mentions that one of Kitchen Tales recipes uses salt water. The owner of the site includes a scan of that recipe, which is added to your evidence. She said if you switch out the salt water in the recipe for a mix of 2/3 spring water and 1/3 filtered seawater, it tastes great. Okay. Can we... I guess it said you can't get the book, but... Let's see. Yeah, it's out of print. Oh, it's released as Garnishing the Truth. But that's not found. It's a book credited to Garland and Zimmer. I guess he sued him and they was like, okay, you have to put my name on it, give me money. Yeah, it was quite successful after they promoted it on a show. Multiple printing since. It's a recipe accompanied by stories. Learning to cook with the entire family. Okay. That doesn't do any printing, we just get to read about it. Introduction of this book is a series of acknowledgements from Steve. The first is, Christine, thank you for everything. Your support means the world to me. You are the apple of my pie. Okay, so that just confirms they are married still, likely. The second is to James and Robert. You're becoming amazing men and incredible chefs. Okay, so that's his kids, likely, then. I guess I'm a good teacher. The final is to Mark Zimmer. You proved my storytelling approach to recipes could be popular. Without you, this book couldn't exist. There's also a foreword by Mark Zimmer. I first met Steve in 1978 when he taught a cooking class. And then I stole his recipes. The next time I saw him was over a decade later when he was suing me for stealing his recipes. Yeah, exactly. You can't just like take something and be like, it's mine now. I made this. Yes, really. So you might wonder, what am I doing in this introduction? Well, it turns out that Steve and I had more in common than we thought. Instead of settling in court, we settled at the McCarran's brew house over a game of darts. They said they'd give us a first drink on the night free for the entire year if we mentioned them. Okay, yeah, free advertising. By the end of the game, he and I agreed we'd both rather make a ton of money together than spend a ton of money on lawyers. It's pretty rare to meet your best friend so late in life, but when I decided to retire, I moved to Boston just so we could hang out. So if you're browsing this book in a bookstore, please buy our book. We need more money for when the free beer runs out, and the bookstore could probably use the sales. Okay, so they just became friends somehow, magically through the lawsuit. And yeah, so he has James and Robert as the kids, and they are living in Boston. Now we need a paper for Boston as well. So that's a pub in Boston. It's been around for a long time. There's a list of famous people that had a drink there, including former president of the United States, not a Rootree company, Kennedy. A few listing of television shows and books that have mentioned McCarran's as well, how they came up. One of them is Garnishing the Truth, which is the site that has to say about local and regular Stevie G wrote a book about food. We prefer cocktails, but he gave us a shout out and we ain't gonna say no to a free press. So grab a bite at his kids joined Friday and then swing by to meet him for a drink. So I guess the kids were born in the 70s, so they are old enough to be doing grown-up things, and that makes sense with this whole they're becoming incredible chefs. Friday is a fairly popular restaurant in Boston. They don't have a website, but many locals seem to mention them in various places. One more in-depth review explains that it's not a full restaurant, just a front door and a very small interior with a window. Usually the restaurant only serves vegetables, but a lot of reviews say that in spite of that, it's delicious. You also find a short story about it listed on a website called My Boston Homepage. Whoever runs the page seems to just link to random sites related to Boston, their personal anecdotes related to Boston, and give their relatively short opinions on things in Boston. It's very unorganized. It has this to say about Friday. Wicked overrated. I saw it in Chef's Signature, so I went there. I was huge line and they didn't even have a single meat dish. What's even the point? Yes, controversial vegetarian cuisine situation. Yeah, we don't have any publications for Boston, so we can't look them up in that. But we have Chef Signatures, a magazine related to food and trendy restaurants. They cover subjects all over the United States. Okay. Chef Signature covered Friday less than a year ago, right around the time you were doing your initial investigation. Each article in Chef Signature tends to focus on a restaurant, and like the magazine's name implies, each restaurant lists the one made dish that the head chef is known for. Friday's signature is the samosa cone. The cover and main article has been added to your evidence. Okay, we got pics. Pics are good. Can a vegetarian diet be trendy? Can it? Wait till they'll hear about vegan diet. It's gonna blow their mind. It's a national magazine targeted toward fans of unusual restaurants. Featured James and Robert Garland on the cover in 1988. According to the article, the two brothers own a small walk-up window in Boston called Friday. Heavily inspired by the spices found in Thai and Indian food. Their signature dish is a samosa cone. From a distance, somewhat resembles a traditional ice cream, complete with waffle pattern. Instead, it contains fried potatoes, pureed peas, carrots, and special ginger-based sauce. Sounds good. Okay, we have Robert, who is 3 years younger than James. So that gives us their age. Jokes that although the age difference has left him delegated to wearing the sous chef jacket his whole life, he doesn't mind. Just that reference to which ones. So he's wearing the jacket, so that's Robert. As a result, James answers most of the interviewer's questions. James credits his love for food and his culinary skills to their upbringing. Most kids hate vegetables growing up, but they don't have parents like we did. Father was a chef, mother grew up on a farm that supplied his restaurant. That's how they met. I don't have any memories from the farm or anything like that since we moved here before I could even talk, but they told me stories. My dad's a great storyteller. He even wrote a book that partially helped fund Friday. When we moved, they were looking to open their own restaurant together. Unfortunately, they never got it off the ground. His line cook gig ended up being less temporary than he hoped, and she had to go back to work as a secretary even after Robert was born. Okay, so she still had to go and work as a secretary at the end, so that's gonna be her last job. Before we were old enough to go to school, we spent our days with my aunt. In the diner where he worked, my dad had no room for experimenting, so he'd exercise his skills at home on his days off. We'd always go shopping and cook as a family, and even though we were hyper kids running around and causing a ruckus, those were some of our family's favorite memories since we were all together. Mom always had the eye for the best vegetables for him to work with, and she did her best to pass that on to us. According to the article, their parents, who are now retired, visit Friday often. They even have a signature dessert, the Sistine apple. Apple pie has always been my mom's favorite, and my dad always had the stupid line he used to make her laugh involving apple pie. Most people realize it's a Sistine Chapel pan and assume that's all there is to it, but it's actually secretly named after them, sort of. Yeah, there's something, you're the apple of my pie. Okay, and we have the plated loaf, which apparently is worth something. Okay, this is a very long, like, story-based recipe that's supposed to kind of give you the instructions through a story, which honestly sounds super annoying. So you can just have a scroll through of the text if you want to read it, because I don't think it's worth anything. Even though it's worth 2, yeah, not sure what that's gonna be referring to. Maybe something about the fact that they, you know, go back together or whatever. The only thing I have to say about it is that it says that you're supposed to take the plated loaf and wrap around the inside of a Dutch oven to make an inward spiral, but on the picture it's just a loaf. It's not a spiral. Developers do better. It's just inconsistent. The narrative department didn't talk to the art department. Can't be having that sort of stuff in your game. Okay, can we now apply this here then? So she went back to work as a secretary and then she retired. And we have Robert and James. So Robert is the younger one. Their name is Garland. And he's a chef. And we have James Garland, who is also a chef. I assume there isn't anything like restaurant or yeah, there isn't anything like a restaurant owner, so it will be a chef. And then that's it, they're incredible chefs, so that's fine. We have Robert wearing the sous chef jacket, and we have James just hanging out. And also I see we have this picture which can now be added here to Mark, because that was just a picture of him as a child next to his brother, and we don't want any spare pictures confusing us. Now for Christine, so we have some pictures of women there. This one is okay. So for the pictures we have of the women that are around Guy, we have this picture of Chris Rafferty that says he was 5 when this picture was taken, and because his username is ChrisRaff75, we can assume that's when he was born. So this picture is from around 1980, so that would be later in the affair cycle. And then we have this picture. We know this is from the Brazilian situation and they are already locked in, other than this woman in the back here. We have this picture here. This is when, I presume, where Guy takes over from Zach. And again, there's a woman in the background. We can assume she's one of the mistress's secretaries, whatever. So let's see again in the records. Yeah, Guy Hudson becomes the special management in 77 and replaces Zach in 78. This is about Christine because it's like, yeah, she worked on a farm with her mother doing the deliveries. But what time was that? Yeah, Valentine's 1978. Or like they were married by 1978 and she was already pregnant in 1978. And actually, yeah, from the company records, yeah, 76 to 77, she worked. Sounds just about right for this picture to be taken then. So I think we can say that this is her on this picture. But this other woman, she will be somewhere later on here, because yeah, that was in 1980. So actually, she will be, if she's one of the mistresses, she would likely be this one here, and we don't know what this is either. This was in the picture of Brazil, so that's interesting. And this is the same person, because there is an alternative picture for her. Again, this is working on an assumption that there are no red herring pictures, right? Like, as much as there can be names that are red herrings, we've not seen anything that implies there are pictures for people that will not be used. So I may just put her here to sort of mark in my head that this was from 1980, because that's based on Chris Rafferty's age, which I will again bring up that I would love to be able to like put little post-its on this board to sort of say, hey, that's what I was thinking about this, to like sort of make notes more spatially sometimes. And there was something, oh my god. See, there's so much, and I'm like, I don't even know what page the things are on that I'm trying to find things on. Yeah, in mid-1981, he has a mistress called Susie. So, again, if you're saying this is a picture from the 80s, and there is a Susie... Oh, actually, let's go company records then. Because let's see if there's any... Yeah, 80 to 81. Yeah, we have a Susan Ford has been moved to office staff. Yeah, Susan Ford no longer works at this department. She was an interpreter. Okay, so she started 79, special category that only existed for a year, interpreter. I guess they were doing business all over the world, so that might have been her job. And then she just moved to office staff 1980, which again aligns with she's just around to be in a picture with Chris Rafferty and stuff like that. Okay, let's put that down under the secretaries, although now even the secretaries are just getting too many. Okay, we've put them down, so I don't think we need to keep all of these. So this is potentially Susan Ford. Like, let's see what she has any results. Nope. I mean, if she's just a secretary or whatever. But let's just put it down to register that I was thinking about it. What else can we pursue before we start going into clicking on the random previous info and trying to see what we can find on the internet about them? Yes, lots of parties and these expenses, lots of flavor development, lots of party. Grant of Dove donation, $250,000. That is suspicious. That is suspicious. Okay, but actually we do have the Australia, France and China threads, so we can look it up. Yes, Rootree Oz is one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Rootree candy. It was developed as part of the Rootree Everywhere initiative, summer 1979. According to history, there was Charles Martin who owned the company and manufactured licorice in Australia, was tapped to run their Rootree factory after they impressed American leadership of the company. They did have some success, but only in certain regions. The manufacturing leg of the company shattered in 1992 after the death of Martin, and Rootree Oz now serves as the importer and distributor. Okay, so did he have the daughter Robyn? Charles Martin was a candy manufacturer in Australia, born in 1923. He had a popular brand of licorice. Most of his history is unrelated to the Rootrees. By 1979, he helped to develop Rootree Oz. He used his own wealth to build a new factory and then distribute the maple treats through the same methods he had already been using for his previous candy venture. A website about Australian commerce mentioned he had a very unusual business arrangement with the main Rootree company. Much like the Clanstras distributed the profits from the Rootree evenly to the Rootree family. The profits for Rootree Oz would split 50-50 between American Rootree company and Martin himself, for him to do with as he wishes. This made Martin very, very wealthy, but also led to many cost-cutting measures meant to increase profits as much as possible. Yes, the same as with the Rootree company. It's like, oh, well, if we can save the money, then I can just have more of it. Especially towards the end of Martin's life in the early 1990s. Rootree candy gained a poor reputation in Australia and suffered immensely. So his vast fortune was passed on to his daughter, Robyn Martin, who we know Guy was meeting with as well, who sold both businesses at first opportunity. Okay, do we know anything about Robyn? Is featured in many of the top 100 wealthiest women in the world list. She owns a private island off the coast of Australia where she reportedly has her own exclusive retreat. Okay, so they really did get a lot of money from running the candy company. She has no husband, and there is a widely circulated rumor somewhere in the mid-70s that she had a medical procedure to ensure she would never have children. You find a joke on a site called Edgy Jokes that implies she's quite promiscuous and has a punchline involving Robyn's eggs. For what it's worth, Martin seemed to lean into the rumors in the 80s. She once showed up at a charity function with 3 very attractive men, each wearing a shirt that simply said "satisfied partner" on it. Okay, well, she knew what she liked and she knew what she wanted. Can't blame her for that. Side jokes about Robyn's eggs. There's a lot of jokes about the band U2 for whatever reason. Okay. Anything about his licorice bullets? No, that's just the same page. Well, if they're business people, maybe in the Business Watch. Yes, it's mostly about American businesses, but the expansion of Roottrees France did create a bit of a blip, 1978. Mentions Charles met with the legal leadership team from Rootree in 77. They came to an agreement and broke ground on a new factory. The company president's statement was brief and a bit awkward. Rootree is excited to begin a new adventure down under. We're extremely impressed with Charles Martin and feel like this expansion heralds a new era for Rootree that will last for years to come. Rootree is founded on family, and Charles' family has also impressed us, especially his daughter Robyn. Yeah, we know. Guy is impressed. Yeah. We know she'll continue to steer the ship just as Elias Rootree's family continues to do here in the USA. Okay. But did she end up having any kids? Apparently Robyn Martin sold off her father's assets in 1992. Okay, so she didn't continue to steer the ship. The year after he died, which combined with her inheritance, immediately catapulted her into an almost unimaginable level of wealth. The writer at Business Watch, who was assigned to report on the news, seemed to disapprove of this move immensely. While the article does touch on the announcement of who took over the licorice division as well as what was to become of the maple candy factory, the entire text seems to be dripping with contempt that someone would be willing to dismantle and gut such a successful company to earn a quick buck. This article ends with dig at Robyn's personal life and lack of traditional values. But who am I to judge? Maybe she sold it to ensure a better future for her own children. Oh wait. Okay, so they're really leaning into she doesn't have any kids, okay? Leave her alone. As much as she may have gone out with Guy and done whatever, like, she doesn't have any kids and she's a dead end in that regard. Unless she's hiding them very well. Because yeah, we have an unmarried woman here, which could be her, but like they're very insistent on she doesn't have any kids. So Australia might be a dead end, but we'll see, maybe there will be something hidden later. Roottree France, one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Roottrie candy. It was developed as part of the Rootree Everywhere initiative, yeah. It was a non-starter. Negotiations broke down pretty late in the process, after the company had already been formed, and the leadership of Rootree went through a very large change soon after. So, CEO of Rootree France was meant to be Tristan Robert. I can already imagine a breakdown around like, he tried to sleep with my wife or whatever, sort or daughter, I don't know, sister. Guy did not discriminate. He is a businessman, the Rootree France. He's still alive. There's an interview unrelated to Rootree from a few months ago. It seems other countries have not been immune to Roottreemania, as you recognize the word Rootree in one of the questions. It seems the interviewer snuck in a question about his experience with the company at the end of the 70s. The article is in French and takes some time to translate section by section. He mentions Guy by first name only, and the tale he tells is quite ugly. The translation is as follows. Guy, the president of Rootree, was one of the worst men I have ever met. He approached my wife about having an affair, which she refused. Straight where I thought this was going to go. Then he kept insisting that this was the best way to celebrate the end of our business contract. I don't think he expected her to say no, and I don't think he thought she would tell me what happened. I punched him in the face and refused to attend another meeting with this man. They lost a lot of money on this deal because not only was he a terrible person, but he was also a terrible businessman. When he died shortly after, it felt like the universe was working things out. I wasn't surprised to learn he had a secret child. He seemed to treat women like collectible pocket monsters. It seems mentioning Pokemon sidetracks the questions a bit, and the interviewer never returns to the subject of Rootree. Well, yeah, he really didn't like him. He didn't really like Guy. There's Pokemon. Can we search? Yes. Pokemon or Pocket Monster. It's a video game franchise. Besides Roottreemania, Pokemania has swept the globe in the last year or so. It's unclear if the franchise will have any lasting presence or will it fail like Roottreemania has. Oh yeah, I wonder whatever happened to Pokemon. Okay, so France is basically a bust because their whole deal was blown on the fact that the wife was not interested in Guy. So is it China then? Okay, China Rootree again companies to manufacture and distribute the candy in the late 1970s. Lang Hongbo, who was said to previously win over the Rootree family and was the owner of multiple textile factories, did not wish to import the ingredients and build a special factory to manufacture the candy in China. So instead they made a deal to import bulk and packaged Rootree candy and labeled it not only for China but other markets. Okay, so we have Lang Hongbo. Hongbo, who was already in his mid-50s when the deal happened, only had daughters. And his brother Lang Hongyu took control upon his death in 1986. After Hongyu died in 1992, it passed to the oldest child from the next generation, Lang Xinyu. They're testing me even further with like pronouncing names across the globe. He was a guy in his 50s, so if he had a wife, she would also likely be in his 50s. So probably Guy wasn't interested, but he had daughters. And obviously, if he was in his 50s, likely the daughters were adults at the time. And so Guy probably was interested. So let's see if we can find anything about... You come across a website for the Lang Tai Textile Corporation, which is a company that has helped expand Rootree products to China. Company is very accomplished. The site has quotes from many different reporters and news articles listed on it in nearly every language. It also mentioned quite often on website about Chinese businesses, but those mentions are company focused and not people focused and don't offer any information useful to your investigation. Their page contains a very rudimentary leadership timeline with names that prove the company has been in the Lang family for a long time. It kind of looks like a family tree. It goes back at least 250 years in some form or another. Hopefully we don't have to track the whole thing. During the period when they began the Rootree deal, Lang Hongbo in China, the family name comes first, so Lang is his last name, was the CEO. He died before the internet was widespread, so there is not much out there other than his name. His younger brother Hongyu is featured in the history section directly following him. This also seems to be the only mention of the man. The current CEO is a woman listed similarly as Xinyu. The site doesn't list her last name, though she does appear in the family tree below Hongbo. So she's one of the daughters of the original CEO then. Like, she wasn't allowed to take over back in the 80s or what it was, but I guess by the 90s maybe things have turned a little bit and there was no man left to take care of the company, so they had to let her. There's a few American logos on this page. One is Rootree, another is Tranquils, and the third is Piece of Asia. Okay, well, let's check out Xinyu. We get printing. It's a businesswoman currently running the Lang Tai textile company. She was recently listed in an article on a website written by and for women. The article entitled Empowered is about the recent rise of women entrepreneurs in China. The article states that due to her lack of brothers, she has a younger sister. Xinyu took over as CEO of her family's company 1992 after her elderly uncle was deemed unfit to run the company due to mental deterioration. This was apparently an extremely controversial move amongst the company's employees, and some of them, the article does not state how many, quit and wrote a letter saying that she must have coerced him in his vulnerable state. So, okay, they weren't happy with her taking over. Since then, the company has been performing well. Her nephew, who is currently her second in command, is expected to take over when she retires. In the meantime, the board stance has been a twist on popular proverb. The article roughly translated as, someone that has proven they can do something well can do it 100 times well. An unproven leader could doom us all. Article also offhandedly mentioned that Xinyu was an early adopter of IVF and helped her sister have a child. There's an unsourced picture of Xinyu in the article. It says that it's from 1992. When she took over, she was 45 at the time. It has been added to your evidence, yes, so she has been 45 in 1992. She was in her 25 in 72, so like towards her 30s when Guy was over, so she was definitely old enough for his nonsense. So we have the textile corporation, we have the tranquils, the play or tranquil and quilts. The name is ironic considering they're the loudest quilts you've ever seen. The main quilt feature on the website is a flaming unicorn soaring through space with peace symbols all around it. I thought they were listed on the website for the Langtai textile company. They don't seem to have much of a connection. It prays they import cloth, okay, so just random thing they do. And we have Piece of Asia. It's an American arm of Langtai, located in Pittsburgh, so they're back to our area. According to the site, the Thai in Langtai translate to peaceful, so they chose their American name to match. There are a lot of other companies listed here, too many to investigate, as very few of them seem to have a relevance. Seems Piece of Asia isn't nearly as accomplished as Langtai. They offer fabrics and clothes and false at price. Nothing out of the ordinary. The business said to be owned by husband and wife Jerry and Linda Han. Their Chinese names are listed too. It seems that Jerry Han is Han Junwei and Linda is Lang Xinyu. Since she's Lang, she's potentially a younger sister to Xinyu. Jerry, Linda and Mark Han appeared recently on a website called Focus on Philanthropy. Under the headline, Hanging with the Hands. Wow, I don't like their pants over there. The hands were chosen because they donate significantly to causes that further Chinese-American culture. Jerry and Linda were both born in China and fell in love during college. Linda's father led a large company. This article never names it. After it expanded to the US, Linda's father approved their marriage so long as Jerry took over the US portion of the business. Linda jokes that the entire situation like something out of Alanis Morissette's song, with how ironic it all ended up. I was absolutely terrified to move to the States, but my big sister was desperately in love with the idea. She used to have this Butch Cassidy poster on her wall, and I was obsessed with Robert Redford. But somehow Jerry and I were the ones sent here, and now we couldn't possibly imagine going back. When we had Mark, we never even considered giving him a traditional name. Meanwhile, my sister stayed in China and has thrived there. She doesn't even like visiting the US anymore. Our kids are complete opposite though. Mark couldn't wait to travel abroad as soon as he was old enough. He's actually in business school in China now, working with my sister. Our niece who grew up there was the opposite. She couldn't wait to get here. She started calling herself Lucy Lang in high school and flew out here as soon as she graduated. The name change apparently drove my sister absolutely loco. So we have the two sisters, Xinyu and Xinyao, who goes by Linda. But Linda is married, and they're saying that actually their child was possibly through IVF through the older sister. But a spot we have here is for an unmarried person. So possibly Xinyu, the older sister, like it seems she's unmarried because yes, there's nothing about her husband taking over the company or anything like that. But she does have a child. It's not exactly a common name, but it's not the most uncommon you've come across either. There are a few that come up with any searchable details, so it might be possible to narrow down your possibilities. She's mentioned in a robotics website, a part of Team Talon Claw. Team Talon Claw are the only two teams from the US participating in a new robot-based show in the UK, like Robot Wars or something. Another Lucy Lang is a part of a small women's a cappella group in Los Angeles called the Genatonics. A third Lucy Lang works in New York for a business called Corporate Synergetic Solutions Unlimited. Okay. Well, let's go from the top then. It's the Robotic Clubs of Mid-Eastern University. The robot, also named Talon Claw, has been selected for appearance on the second season of Britain's television show focused on robot fighting. Yeah, it's Robot Wars. Robot Club has a text-only site, so no pictures. You can find links from the university students section. The site seems likely used mostly to announce the schedule to its members. The club is supposed to meet every Tuesday and Thursday, but the last 8 dates have all been cancelled because a few members of the team are currently in the UK filming. And their date from a few weeks back was cancelled for an interview with the school's newspaper. At the bottom, the traveling members of Tanglo is team captain Jaya Patel, Lucy Lang and Kurt Hauser. So in Mid-Eastern, we have a periodical for them because that's the Herald. Can we get the team? Yes, we can. A story about their school robotics team. 3 student members. Talk about each their history. The only that catches your attention is Lucy Lang. She grew up in China as Min Lang. Came to the US specifically to attend university. She grew up around factory-scale machines that assembled products that would be shipped all over the world. And the moving parts and automation fascinated her. However, as she has progressed through her major, she has become obsessed with a smaller, more powerful hydraulics, such as the mechanics that close a style-enclosed weapon. She does linguistics. One of her hobbies since coming to the States has been collecting accents. In her spare time, she practices not only removing any trace of her native inflection, but also quickly switching between multiple different regional accents. She feels her personal best is the Southern Belle, but her favorite is the Valley Girl due to its use in popular culture. Yeah, I'm always like curious about how people go about switching accents and like even dropping their accents and getting accents like based on where they live, because I can't do it. Like, I mean, my English accent is not great, despite me using English for a very long time as my primary language. So I'm not quite sure how people learn that. Okay, well, we've got a pic. Okay, so this is a pic of Xinyu. So she's just, again, having a pic of someone almost confirms that they're the ones. And we have a picture of Lucy and the robot as well. Okay, well, I guess this confirms the situation. So this is Xinyu Lang, and she's a CEO. Okay, yeah, because we had 3, so that puts dots together. Okay. Booyah! But we still have Min Lang. So she's our next one here.